Mark Ogden's still with us, so Arsenal, 7 points clear. They could, of course, have been 9. Aston Villa can close that gap. They're in action on Sunday. But overall, as I say, we've seen this before from Arsenal. Too much of late.
Yeah, and it was a great opportunity, bearing in mind they knew what had gone on in the morning, to go to a side that were beaten by Everton recently, amongst others. You know, the Forest, apart from the West Ham game, they've not been in good form. They've been under pressure at home. And of course Arsenal dominated. They were always going to do that. But Forest made it into the type of game that they wanted. You know, it was a bit scrappy, and they tried to hit on the counter, and there was a few tackles going in. But Arsenal were, just poor in the final third. They just looked a little flat, as almost they thought a point was okay for them.
Do you think so?
No, but I kind of just felt that, and obviously I think there is a. I mean, depending what happens tomorrow with Aston Villa, they can put a bit of pressure on, or a little bit of pressure on. Once again, we saw a talking point up front in Victor Gyökeres. He does look, and when we come in today, before we came on the show, I said to you boys, he looks like a championship player in a potential title-winning side. That's how he looks.
Do you know, this is not a straightforward, Arsenal this and Arsenal that. Listen, you know how good the Invincibles were? That was a fantastic team, wasn't it?
Right.
Where
are you going with this?
Well, they drew 12 games. They drew 12 games.
I think it's the performances.
It's the front players. It's the front players.
Well, yes.
And against Liverpool and today against Forest, the front players were lacking. And he completely changed the front three again, as he did at Liverpool, and they still couldn't produce.
Right.
So that's the only problem they have.
So what's that got to do with the Invincibles?
Well, because everybody's going, they've dropped points. I mean, you can't expect every single time you step on the field you're going to win 3 or 4-0 against a team like Forest.
This isn't an anomaly. This is Arsenal now. Like, who's excited about watching an Arsenal game? No one.
The point is, Dan, they've put themselves in a position where we're sitting here, I'm sitting here going, is this a point gained or 2 lost? They're 7 points clear at the top of the league. If somebody said to you, after 22 games, you're an Arsenal manager, by the way, you're going to be 7 points clear after 22 games, you would have taken their hand off in a heartbeat.
I absolutely understand that.
Well, I just think we get carried away. We get carried away with this, woe is me. They're 7 points clear at the top of the league after 22 games.
Right.
And if we want to pick a hole, we can pick a hole on the front players in the last 2 Premier League games who have been firing blanks.
No, they're going to be champions. I don't think there are many that are going to argue against you for that. And yes, that's brilliant. Right. But for us, we want something more, don't we? Like, if you're not an Arsenal fan,
that's what I'm saying. We just look at the team sheet and we look at what we think Arsenal are, and when they're at their best, and then we look at Forest, what they are at their best. Well, they should be an easy win. Football doesn't work that way. You know, sometimes when you're playing away from home against a side like Forest, who on their day will chase you, fight you, harry you, not give you much. And if you don't take those little opportunities you get...
Thinking, we could have been 9 points, and it could be 4 points by the end of the
match. I think he likes draws, because Liverpool are drawn against him. He likes...
Draws are the new wins.
Draws are good.
Yeah. What about the Invincibles, Mark?
Yeah.
They drew 12.
Well, they drew 12 games.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Well, it has a lot to do with it.
Why?
Well, because everybody talks about how fantastic a team it was, but they drew 12 games.
Right.
But this Arsenal team is not allowed to draw. It's all of a sudden, it's all woe. It's woe is me. This is Arsenal. Arsenal's going to... calm down.
Oggy, is Arsenal going to do anything in January?
Unlikely. They spent a lot of money in the summer, didn't they? They really kind of blew their budget on Gyökeres and quite a lot of forwards. Eze came in and Madueke, so it's unlikely they'll bring anybody in. But I know Stevie's coming from. I can take his point, but I think in terms of the draws, but I think that Invincible side would, when they had to win, they would win, and they would show people how good they were. And I think this Arsenal side just lacked that ruthlessness to kind of really take a step towards the title. And I think a lot of it's down to Arteta in the sense that he never really goes for broke. He's more cautious than the managers that usually win titles. And I think they will win the league, but I mean, this is probably going to upset a lot of Arsenal fans, but if they win the league this year, I think they'll be the weakest champions for a long time because they've got the weakest teams chasing them. You know, the teams that are in second and third aren't the classic, challengers. This Arsenal side are nowhere near the Liverpool sides that have won it, the City sides. I mean, even the Leicester side that won it in 2016, I think they give it this Arsenal side a run for the money. So But they're going to win it, so the Arsenal fans won't care, will they? They won't care if they're not champagne football like the Invincibles. If they win the title, it doesn't matter. But they're winning it because they're so far clear because of the failings of others rather than because of their excellent play or performances themselves.
So 12 times the Invincibles.
Oh my God, it's still going on about.
They didn't have to win. All right.
Right. Anything else? I think that's it for that game. Questions then for Arne Slot to answer. Liverpool 1, Burnley 1. Liverpool are 4th, despite all their rubbish this season. Yeah. They are 1 point clear of Manchester United. Big gap between them and obviously Aston Villa and City.
Look at that goal difference, +4 after 22 games.
It's a bit like City in a sense, isn't it? There shouldn't be any excuses. It's just not good enough.
But it's just weird.
No, but it's just not. It's not acceptable. It's not good enough. He had everything he wanted pretty much. All right, didn't get Mark Gay in the summer, right? But he didn't. Nobody thought that Kanate and Van Dijk in particular would have poor seasons and Kerkez would struggle. But he's got to address that, the manager. But he got pretty much everything else. I mean, they were just going to turn up, and everybody else was going to get on their hands and knees and give them the Premier League trophy. So to see some of their performances this year, it's embarrassing. And I saw a stat earlier. It's the first time in Premier League history a reigning Premier League champion has failed to beat a promoted side at home. And that they've drawn with Leeds, they've drawn with Burnley, they've drawn with Sunderland. There's nobody that turns up at Anfield and doesn't think they can win. And that's on the manager and the players. It's not good enough.
Like when Edwards scores, you think, right, everyone's going to rally now. And I suppose we thought that all season. And there's just no response. We've talked about, that glass chin that Liverpool have.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, defensively, if you're playing against Liverpool, they're going to give you a chance. I mean, you just know. And regardless of how long you defend, like Burnley did today, when you know in the back of your mind that we can get at these, and we just need to get it right once, and that's pretty much what they did. They got it right probably twice in the game, and they took one of the chances, and then Liverpool have been doing going forward what they've been doing all season. There's no real combination play. There was a couple of times over the last 2 or 3 weeks when Frimpong's been playing that him and Verts have had a couple of.
What are Liverpool doing in training up front to address this? Because as you say, we see it all the time.
I would guarantee you in training they're hitting the back of the net for fun. The problem is training and games are two different animals. You can set up in training. Ideally what you want is repetitiveness, right? And that means you're setting training up. You're doing exercises so that your forwards and your attacking players are hitting the back of the net. So that when they go into the game, they're confident. But of course, unfortunately, when you go into the game, the opposition stick people in front of you. And the opposition do things that they're not supposed to do. And so it completely changes the whole thing. But the biggest worry for me is there's no combinations with the forward players, really.
Yep.
It's all individual stuff. And when it's all individual stuff, then the percentages just go down in terms of creating chances and scoring goals. And then when you can't defend, then it just needs one break, and all of a sudden you drop 2 points.
It's not even a big story anymore, is it?
No.
That's the whole
it's not
thing.
a
You look at the
surprise.
order that we were looking at today,
Yeah,
it's like, what are we going to say is different about Liverpool?
But it should be. It should be, and maybe that's... Had Liverpool not won the Premier League last year, and they did, had they not, they would have been dragging, I think the Liverpool fans, that is, would have been dragging this manager through the coals. The fact that he came in and they did play so well, particularly for the first 6 months or 7 months of the season, domestically, and took the Premier League by the scruff of the neck. Okay, they fell away at the end, but they'd already won it. The fact that he did that is allowing him, at the moment, this leeway for all these performances. And he can thank his lucky stars he got that, because had he not, and they had been just also-rans last year, he'd have been back in Holland by now, looking at some of these results. So we talked about it the other day, Stevie and I. Barring a disaster, he's going to get to the end of the season. Yeah. But if this is a continuation next year, he hasn't got a snowball's chance of staying in that job. Not a chance.
Yeah. No, there's no sign of improvement. I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's no sign that what he's doing...
Well, he's got the Salah issue.
Yes.
Which, and again, next year, 1 year older. Van Dijk starting to struggle, 1 year older. So it doesn't get any easier when you get into your 30s like that. and you start to struggle. It's much more difficult to have a bad season and when you're 33, 34 and flick a switch and come back in the summer and have a great season.
Yeah.
It's much easier to do that when you're 26, 27, 28. So if he can't address it, the chances of the form of some of these players getting better next year is very slim.
Yeah, Oggy, the drop-off has been so stark, and it's a question that none of us thought we were going to be having at the start of the season, is questioning Slot's future, especially with a certain former Liverpool player who's just left his job at Real Madrid.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, the backing for Slot amongst the fans, it's beginning to wear a bit thin, to be honest. I think, having been at games and spoke to, some Liverpool fans that I know, they are losing patience with Slot, and it's almost like they don't want to, but they are doing, because they accept that, he won the league last season and he had a great year, first year after Klopp, but I think they accept now that it's not looking great. And you're right, Xabi Alonso's available, and Xabi Alonso is kind of the darling of the Liverpool fans. He was their first choice to replace Jurgen Klopp, and none of them had actually heard of Arne Slot, to be honest, when he got the job, but they all wanted Alonso, but he ruled himself out pretty quickly. So the fact that he's there, obviously he'll want a break and he'll want to kind of freshen up, but when the summer comes, I'd imagine he'll be available. So that doesn't work well for Arne Slot. So he has to get something out of this season. He has to start finding a way to deal with those issues that Craig addressed. And I think the big one, the Mo Salah thing won't be an issue next season. It'll have to be resolved either now, in the next 2 weeks, or in the summer. I don't see Mo Salah being at Liverpool next season. I really don't. He may not even be here for the rest of the season. I think he will be, but that hasn't been resolved, that situation. He comes back from the African Nations on, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And, what does Arne Slot do? They haven't lost a game since he dropped him, but obviously they haven't been beating teams and turning up any trees, but they haven't lost. Now, when he put Mo Salah back in the team, the issues that they dropped him for in the first place, the lack of work rate, the lack of goals, if that remains the case, and it affects Florian Wirtz's kind of slow progress, then Mo Salah's a problem again. So Arne Slot's got a massive issue to address this when Mo Salah comes back. And it's kind of been brushed under the carpet a little bit. And I guess it's something that he's kind of dreading because, the Mo Salah situation, it was a hard one to solve last time. So that could blow up in the next few days.
And we'll be talking about Salah's future at Liverpool, of course, later on in the week when he returns from the African Cup of Nations.
Brentford kept going.
Yeah, Chelsea 2. Brentford 0 then is how it finishes. Victory for Rosenior's debut then at Stamford Bridge. Mark with us. Craig, as I mentioned, you kept an eye on this for us.
We get no Liam Rosenior quotes of that because I'm kind of thinking he's said already in his early tenure some kind of questionable things in terms of his rhetoric. So I don't know what he said.
Is it fair to say the scoreline doesn't quite reflect what happened in this game?
100%. It was two mistakes, certainly the second one from Collins, who put Kelleher, who's been brilliant, under pressure. If you watch this game, and I don't know, that's why I'm intrigued to know what Rosenior is going to say about it or has said about it. Chelsea, and I don't say this lightly, they got battered, outplayed for the bulk of this game. They had their moments, but if you'd have looked at these two sides and said, one of them lost 3 or 4 top players in the summer, and the other one has spent millions, you'd have thought Chelsea had lost the players and Brentford had spent the millions, because the way that Keith Andrews' side played was terrific. They sat Chelsea back on their heels. They punched Chelsea in the nose several times, and they were frightened to press Brentford because they were playing round them. And they had, the big fella up front who was always a threat. They had Jensen playing some stuff. They just played. This sounds strange because they lost. But they lost this game because they had 2 poor moments in the match, and their finishing was very poor. And to be fair to Robert Sanchez, he had the stinker in midweek, but he made a couple of good saves.
Right.
But in terms of what Liam Rosenior takes from this game, he takes 3 points.
And run, is that basically
and absolutely runs. Because if they play like this, Chelsea that is, most teams in the Premier League will beat them. And Brentford, who were 5th, I think, going into this game, which is a testament to them with their squad, they played by far the better football in this game. They had the Chelsea fans moaning and groaning at home. The fact that they didn't score was down to them, but they completely bossed this Chelsea side. So I think there's a lot of questions there for Liam Rosenior about how he's going to approach at the games and what he's going to bring to this Chelsea team, because how they played today was a bit of a head scratcher.
Well, we saw how they're going to play against Arsenal midweek. I mean, it's open. And so unless you're so dominant and then you're creating and taking your chances, you're leaving yourself open. And a team like, I don't think we give Brentford enough kudos that they actually play some good football. We know that they compete, and we know that they'll play the ball forward early if it needs be. But in this game, they showed us actually they can knock the ball around. And so you have to ask yourself, what is Routine going to... Is he going to keep playing open attacking football against everybody, home and away? Because if he does, it's going to be great to watch. But unfortunately, he's not going to get many wins. Because that back line isn't capable of stopping most teams. So, Brentford, they're way better than I thought they were. I didn't give them enough kudos. But Chelsea, they're way too wide open. It's all this lovely, we're going to play football patter. Sometimes it doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, you have to change. And they never changed anything the whole game.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Oggy, any business that Chelsea will do now in the next couple of weeks?
Well, they want a defender, but you never know with Chelsea, because Chelsea seem to go into every window saying, we'll have a quieter window this time. We'll get to the last week of it and they start throwing money around. So, they do need a centre-half. They were looking at Mark Gueye, but that was never going to happen with City and Liverpool in there. So I think they would look to do anything at the back end of the pitch. I think they're okay in attacking sense. They've got a lot of wingers, a lot of forwards, but they need a centre-half. But whether they can find one or not, I'm sure they will, because that's what they tend to do, but they are looking for a centre-half.
Let's check out what else happened today in another new low, if you like, for Thomas Frank at Spurs. As West Ham get a much-needed victory, of course, in their quest for survival. Taking a look at what that means, they, of course, still sit in the relegation zone, 5 still adrift of Nottingham Forest. For Spurs, they sit 14th. They don't have to worry about relegation, but Thomas Frank most definitely has to worry about his future. He's a dead man walking, isn't he, Mark?
Yeah, I think he is, and it's because it's the fans that have turned against Thomas Frank way before the club have lost patience with him. I think the club would like to stick with him, but the fans are booing him off at every game now. The fans just don't like him. They don't like his football. They think he just doesn't get the Tottenham way, and we know that the Tottenham way is to play a certain style of football, and it's cost a lot of managers the job at Tottenham, but he just doesn't fit there, and I think that's the issue. And I think next week they got Burnley away, which is, they have to win that game if Thomas Frank's still in charge. If you look at the games they got in February, they've got United and City, they've got Arsenal and Newcastle, so he really, really needs to get a result next week if he's still there. But I think the case is that the fans have turned. It's a case of Tottenham. Can they find somebody who can replace him until the end of the season? Then they can do this, search for a manager in the summer. But they're in a bit of a mess, Tottenham. They really are. I mean, they're not going to be in a relegation battle. It's like last season, isn't it? They're way down the bottom half of the table, not at risk of relegation, but going nowhere. And I think, Thomas Frank is going to be very, very lucky to see out the season if he sees out the month.
No, it's results and it's performance, isn't it? I mean, they can't. They're not borderline unwatchable. They're just unwatchable. And you look at the expected goals, for instance, in that game against West Ham. West Ham, who are one of the worst teams thus far in the league going forward, they are so blunt going forward. They don't create many chances. We're almost double Tottenham at home, and it's not an anomaly. And it's okay when, you look at Brentford. Stevie talked about, we were talking about Brentford and how they played some really good football. That's a sea change for how they did it. They're starting to play some good football. They're seeing what Keith Andrews is working on in the training field. What got Thomas Frank his name at Brentford was sitting in, was physicality, was long balls over the top for Mbumo, and it was Ivan Toney before, and Johan Visa, who would run in behind. It was Norgard in the middle, they were digging away. Yeah. And that was okay for Brentford. That was okay, but he's gone into Tottenham and he's tried to do something similar. And at the start of the season, it was all right. Man City away, you thought, well, organised, City away, not much possession, that's clever. But when you're playing that way against some of the poorer teams in the Premier League, at home, and you're not getting results, the only way to satisfy supporters when you're watching such dire football is when they leave a ground and they got 3 points. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like when Mourinho was at the end of his tether at a few clubs. The only way you can sell that type of football to supporters is victories and success. There is nobody buying football like that when the results are not there. That's the only thing that's going to keep you alive. When your performances are as dull as Tottenham's are, then there has to be something tangible on the league table, and there is not.
Spurs fans want Xavi Alonso, Mark.
Xabi Alonso for Tottenham? Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, Ryan Mason's available again. He lost his job at West Bromwich, so Ryan Mason could step in for the rest of the season. But yeah, I mean, you know, Spurs have got, and the problem that Tottenham have got is if they do get rid of Thomas Frank, they're up against Man United, who are looking for a manager as well. So that will automatically diminish their chance of getting a coach. Real Madrid might want a permanent manager soon. So Tottenham are going to be looking at, you know, they're going to be 5th or 6th choice with these top managers. So again, that's an issue. So I do think Oliver Glasner's a shout for Tottenham, but whether he wants to risk his reputation, I'm not too sure.
Anything you want to add, Stephen?
No, you're done. When your own fans at home are singing, you're getting sacked in the morning.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.